All right, so a lot of questions about starters, passing out starters to people, which I love to do, and you'll see by the end of this, you'll understand why that's not a huge deal to give somebody some. It's more than a pleasure for me. So if you look at what you want to do with a starter, you have different starters. You see that there's some bubble action going on there. This guy's been fed. He was fed last night. He's getting a little hungry. Made it up to like here. Now coming back down a little. Right. We also have one that I incorporated half whole wheat. So this takes a little longer just because it's a more complex grain. This guy's hungry. He's ready to be fed as well. This guy got a little crazy and overdid it a little bit. But now, what do we want to do to feed the starter? I recommend a kitchen scale. It's the easiest to use. What I do is the 4 ounces. So let's unearth this guy here. Very easy to do. You could use a Pyrex. You could use another jar. I have all my jars in use, so I'm going to just do this one in here for right now. You hit the tare button, zeros, and you go until you get about 4 ounces. And if possible, exactly 4 ounces. 2.3, 3, 3.5, 4.3, oh, a little heavy. And take let's put a little back in there. All right, 4.13, that's fine. Now, next thing we do is we want the same amount of flour, same amount of water. Hit the tare button, right? So now we have water here. I have about 4 ounces. I'm gonna put that in there. 3.9, right up to a little over 4. Look at that, perfect, 4.06. And then we want 4 ounces of flour. All-purpose flour is generally what you use. As I mentioned, you could use whole wheat if you want. I figured out that each one of these scoops is right around an ounce, so about 4 of them comes up to 3.7, a little more. There we go, 3.9, right? Now the important thing here is you want the ratio to be the same. 444, 666, 888, 222, whatever it may be. 4 is a nice number because this will rise, right? This is gonna get big. Take it off the scale, mix it all up. And now this starter is fed, right? You get all the flour. You don't want any lumps of flour stuck on the bottom. I used to use a spoon for this, and then I cracked a jar with the metal spoon because I was mixing vigorously. Now I use a softer spatula. So now this guy right here, you really have 2 options. Take them, scrape all the sides here. That's perfect. That's what we want, right? Now this guy you could cover. You can see you have the wax paper rubber band. Set it on your counter. Depending on the time and temperature, and which are 2 ingredients in bread making, don't forget that. Time and temperature are very important. If it's 60 degrees in your kitchen, that's gonna bubble up 8 to 12, more towards the 12 hours. If it's a warm kitchen, it'll bubble up and be hungry again about 8 hours in. So that definitely makes an impact. If you don't have a kitchen scale, really don't fret. You could do the 4 ounces of the starter basically by taking about a half a cup. And then you could also use a scant cup of flour, which is about like that. You can see it's called the scant cup, combined with the 4 ounces of water, which you can measure on the liquid, right? Now here's the question I always get. What do we do with this, right? We have an extra starter here. So you could do a couple things. You could take, presumably there's 8 ounces left, right? Because we had 12 from the last time. This guy over here is gonna give us 12 as an ingredient. And when it's ripe, you'll use that as an ingredient in your baking. But what do we do with this guy here? That's not really enough for a loaf. What I'll probably do is combine it with the discard from these 2. And discard is really leftover ripe starter. Now, what I could do is take 4 ounces of this, put it in a jar, give it to a neighbor. And like I said, that's why it's not a huge deal to give out the starter. If you're feeding it constantly, you're always gonna have discard. You could take this, you could put it in a bag, put it in the fridge. Early on, I would do that. And it would hang out in the fridge for a while, and you could use it for things like pretzels or waffles. I found out that it would sit in the fridge for a while, and I ended up throwing it away. So what I do now is I'm gonna probably feed this into another one, after the video's over. Like I mentioned, you could also take 4 ounces of this, put it in a jar, put it in the fridge for next time. So really the best practice to do is the first time you go and feed your starter, the first time you do it, you should take 4 ounces, put it in a jar. Don't tighten the jar lid all the way because this is a living, breathing thing, right? What you're doing here is you're feeding it. There's yeast. People are like, where's the yeast? The yeast is in there, right? There are organisms in there that are gonna chew through the flour. That's how you feed it. That's what causes the bubbles. It's fermenting, right? So you'd never want a tight seal. I have seen plenty of things posted on Reddit and others that, hey, I had my starter, I had it vacuum, tightened, and the jars just split down the middle, right? So there you go. You can have your leftover starter. Always put some back in the fridge. You know what? If you get to the point, it's a little overripe, it's not really, and by ripe I mean super bubbly, you could discard it into the trash, right? Don't feel bad about that, but try to use what you can. And like I said, always make a backup and share with your friends and neighbors.